World wars, science, and a holiday we love to celebrate.
That's right, here are the top 10 ridiculous events from the Roarin 20s.
Nice.
Kicking off the list at number 10, accidental science, aka the discovery of penicillin. Sometimes miracles happen when nobody's looking. Alexander Fleming first discovered penicillin back in 1928. At the time, he was actually studying Staphylococcus, which is a bacteria that causes infections and boils, all that nasty stuff. But right before Alexander left for a 2-week vacation, he left a petri dish with some of that Staphylococcus on the lab table rather than storing it away in an incubator. During this well-needed time off, a penicillium mold spore just drifted in there, either through a window or the lab door, some Horton Hears a Who adventure. This tiny speck was well on its way. It was the perfect conditions for a spore flight. The temperature of the room wasn't too breezy, and the lack of one Alexander Fleming allowed time for the mold to fight back and prevent that bacteria from growing any further. He discovered this antibacterial substance was only produced by strains of penicillium. Yeah, the guy accidentally creates penicillin on his time off. What a great time. The 20s were an odd but brilliant time.
Number 9, Prohibition. It's a law that puts fear into wine-drinking moms and beer-drinking dads across the nation. For there was a time when the sale and consumption of alcohol was banned. That means it was a dry country, not one drop to be had. Except for those found in loopholes and all the other crazy loopholes in the system. And by that, I actually mean organized crime filling the shoes of breweries and other openings like literal underground bars called speakeasies to keep the sauce flowing. You know what I mean. Now, to be fair, there was an issue with drinking back in the day, but there's a few issues with banning it as well. The first being that it was in high demand, like stupid high, even before it was banned. So banning it basically gave a green light to bootleggers and criminals to make millions, and they did. And second, it was America's 5th largest industry, putting many out of work and dissolving a very large portion of tax revenue. No surprise it didn't work out.
Number 8, the work week. Okay, seriously, who do we have to talk to? Who do we have to blame for having to work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday? Dolly Parton has a groovy tune about it, but when did the 40-hour work week start? 1926 is your answer. The Ford Motor Company, of all companies. Yeah, who do you think? They were the first to have factory workers clock in and out 40 hours a week with a weekend. Nice. Whereas before, you maybe had one day off, maybe, depending on what you were doing. Obviously, more time to rest, eat, and clear your mind, maybe work out. This increased productivity, so it spread like wildfire. Cut to today, we're now advocating for a 4-day work week. We're getting greedy, I know. Shorter hours, same workload. Apparently, this is going well. Productivity is soaring. In Iceland, for example, 2,500 workers tested this 4-day work week. That's literally 1% of Iceland's population, so it worked. Pretty big test run. But now 86% of Iceland's workforce have shorter hours. It's great. Seems like we're well on our way. So sorry, Mr. Ford, we're taking back our Fridays.
Okay, number 7, Valentine's Day. Not the most romantic Valentine's Day ever, but maybe one of the most infamous. Back in 1929, organized crime was no joke. It was everywhere. Thanks to Prohibition and a lot of corruption, it was the age of gangsters. However, one incident in 1929 changed things. On February 14th, 1929, 7 gang members were deleted. This proved to be too much for the public at the time, and the final straw in a large string of violent crimes was up. Until this point, a lot of crooks and gangsters like Al Capone were idolized for their lavish lifestyles and ritzy and swanky nights in the town. This, however, was one step too far and helped to further reform in crime, giving a certain FBI predecessor to rise up and eventually found the FBI. The lesson here? Sure, being a gangster is great. Sign your autographs, live like a fat cat in your penthouse, but there's only so much you can get away with. After it was all said and done, Capone got put away too. And if they can get Capone, they can get you.
Number 6, the birth of brands. When it comes to advertisements, you can't even take the bus down the street without seeing hundreds of ads. I'll catch myself staring at a Sunwing ad for 43 minutes just so I can avoid eye contact with Johnny Jingle Keys in front of me. Even growing up, the amount of pop-ups I had to close really fast, my reflexes are so sharp now, all thanks to those gross pop-ups. And it all started 100 years ago. Huge brands began popping up in the 1920s with these fun slogans, big colorful ads. The 20s witnessed the birth of advertisements from Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, Hostess Cakes, Welch's, and of course, one of the most unforgettable, Kool-Aid. Yeah, the Kool-Aid Man is 95 years old. Yeah, I bet his knees are starting to feel like glass, that's for sure. Other companies that popped at this time was CVS, the automobile industry obviously, and two brothers in California named Walt and Roy Disney. Yeah, they had some startup cartoon studio. Not sure what happened there. Best of luck, guys. Keep going. Hopefully they have a GoFundMe, maybe.
Number 5, the League of Nations. World War I, she was a little bit of a doozy. Unlike some wars, World War I actually changed a lot after it was said and done. Borders changed, lines on maps, empires fell, some rose. Political ideas changed, and the history of Europe's future was sealed the second the ink dried on the Treaty of Versailles. After the nations who were involved with the war took stock of what happened, and it was clear we could never let this happen again. So the League of Nations was created. Beta UN, if you will. The idea was simple: peace, disarmament, and to step in when such horrific things were to ever happen again. I'm sure they won't. Well, the planning didn't go very well, and when it was finished, the US ultimately didn't decide to join when they were one of the founding members. Ooh. Mind you, the US had a different mindset on foreign wars back then, but they were still involved. The League dissolved shortly after the Second World War ended.
Number 4, flappers. What a fun word to type in. In August 1920, history was forever changed when the 19th Amendment was passed, finally giving women the right to vote. Now look, in a list of ridiculous events, I'm adding this because it took a ridiculously long time to happen. Yeah, a little twist there for you. At first you're like, what? Relax. We're working. This was post-World War I, when women were still working all these jobs, high-paying jobs, might I add. So now there's no way they're gonna let those go. There's momentum in the workforce. So, come August 1920, American women got the right to vote officially. Then Margaret Sanger came along the same year, which led us to women's right to birth control. Lot of momentum. Like Big Ched mentioned earlier, Prohibition ended legal alcohol sales, but with jazz and women's independence post-war on the rise, you couldn't stop all this momentum. Thus, the flapper girl was introduced to American slang. Yeah, smoking in public, drinking and dancing at jazz clubs, all things that were upsetting their Victorian lineage before them. Oh, you want to dance to jazz and have fun post-war? How dare thou? You want to show your calf after working doubles during a war? How dare you? Put those caps away, put that out.
Number 3, the Russian Revolution. Revolution, comrades! The 1920s were a crazy time, man, and if you look at the history between the US and Russia, it's almost like a hero and a villain origin story. Okay, hear me out. World War I was a bad time for Russia. They dropped out in early 1918, shortly before the whole thing ended. Why? Because the communists were there to take over. That's just how it went. Russia went from a 300-year Romanov rule to communism within a few short years. Safe to say this was having a great effect on the already struggling nation. It seemed that the harder things got, the more communist Russia got. When looking at the states after World War I, for the most part, it was a huge financial gain. And besides being the decade of gangsters and bootleggers, this was the start of many corporations and brands, like Taylor mentioned. It seemed as things got better and became more capitalist. Interesting indeed. Duality.
Number 2, the Ponzi Scheme. We've all heard the term Ponzi Scheme at one point or another, but what does that even mean? Who is this man? Where can I find him? Why are we so mad at him? Why is he scheming so often? Why? Who does that? A Ponzi scheme is of course a sham of an operation. It all kicks off back in the 1920s when one Italian immigrant named Charles Ponzi moved to the United States. He arrived to the States with the same goal as anyone, to work. That's it, just to work and be successful. At first he didn't have much luck, but eventually Charles was hired at Bank Zerosi, and when the bank sadly went bankrupt, Ponzi was SOL. He needed to do something, and he needed to do something fast. So he dabbled into smuggling, but he got caught. After he was released, he went into the postal system, started to buy large quantities of postal coupons from countries with, a weak economy, and then he hired a bunch of agents, trained them up good, Wolf of Wall Street style, and the whole idea was that you would promise investors that they would receive double their investment back in return within 45 days. How lovely is that? Thus, the Ponzi scheme is born. Yeah, these agents got 10% commission too, which as far as scams go, it's not too shabby, not bad at all.
Number 1, Black Tuesday. Uh-oh, stinky! The market crashed and now everyone's going broke. Big oof, right? Adam told me to say that. Anyway, yes, the great market crash of 29. It wasn't good. A mixture of outstanding loans, an already declining unemployment percentage, a struggling agriculture sector mixed in with a speck of low wages and stocks just not being worth what they were is the cause of the crash. By 1932, a lot of stocks were only worth 20% of what they originally were before. The stock market crash was not the main cause of the Great Depression, however, it was a symptom of it. The market wouldn't fully be back to normal until after FDR's New Deal, or realistically, when World War II had started and kicked America's, and really the world's economy back into turbo mode.
Those are the top 10 ridiculous events from the Roarin 20s.
Absolutely. If you guys like it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe here at Bumblebee, and if you want to see more, let us know. Just in the comment section, somewhere down there.
Right down there.
Yeah.
I've been your host, Taylor McWaters.
I've been your other host, Big Chetty.
We'll see you soon.
Bye. Being the decade of... Oh, I didn't finish that point. Well, that's okay. Well, let's improv it.
We have 45 seconds left till we're in trouble. Let's talk about Turbo for the whole time.
Turbo.
Brandon's like, please, no.
Yes, why not? Why not?
I'm like, hey, you guys ever seen Ants? What about Bug's Life?
Bug's Life, that's a good one.
I always used to mix those up growing up.
Me too, dude.
Really?
I used to do that all the time.
Because it had scary ant-looking dudes.
I thought sometimes it would come on TV and I'm like, is this the one with Kevin Spacey or without Kevin Spacey?
Exactly. That's how you know. You're like,
Is this the one with the German? Oh yeah, it's the caterpillar. That one.
That's
that,
the one,
yeah,
yeah.
and I'm like, that's
the good one.
Bug's Life. Yeah, that's a good. And then the other one's just really scary.
Ants.
Kevin Spacey Army.
It's kind of like Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps? Or Bug's Life and Ants. It's like they're both good,
but
one's just kind of dirty.
Yeah. That's so true.
One's
yeah,
like,
very dirty.
I really watch that after 10 p.m. It's kind of scary at that point.
I agree.